Hi everyone, Nadia here, and welcome home. Welcome to Friday's Spiritual Advocacy. I call it that because here I want to share skills that I use every single day to advocate for my spirit and to create a home within me. How did that term come about? What I wish I had known when I was younger was two main things. That we are born of and from and always are in a core truth and core innocence. I know that that's hard for us to hear, but that is really our true infinite selves. What I did not know also when I was younger was that while that infinite self is in this body and mind, our mind is designed, our brain, our functions, to help us survive. Most of the thoughts that are created are really truly based on a core fear. They become self-judgment, they become judgment of others, which has resulted in so much shame within when people struggle with mental health and addiction, chronic pain, whatever the human struggle might be. It has resulted in shame within and in shaming of others. But we really are all infinite spirits in bodies, in this mind. And so if all of us could find a place in the center, a center that I call a home, where mindfulness and understanding how our mind works, that long journey, that daily practice is in place, while here we are connected to our truth, and the truth of what we are and all are is built little by little, where a higher consciousness and intuition comes. Here, it's realistic. It's right here in the middle, and it is called home. And so I am no guru. Home is within you. What it does offer, it offers all of my learnings and all of the hard work that was done over years of recovery. That included treatment, jail, and hospitalizations. Many relapses. And I say that proudly here because there is no shame in that. There is no shame in saying my brain was marked multiple times with both physical, psychological, emotional, various different traumas. All of ours are, some to a larger extent than others, some actually physically with processing, some maybe they think not at all, but truly, as an infinite spirit in this physical body with a mind, the spirit is in this body to experience itself. And so living is quote unquote trauma. It is quote unquote evolving, changing the way that our I thought I turned the call notifications off. I believe I did, but it seems that I may have some interruptions here still. Stay with me here. So, Friday's spiritual advocacy is about banning shame and shaming, because I believe that when that mind when this body, as it's holding our spirit, when that mind is in the highest forms of fear and judgment, it becomes shame and shaming. And it separates us from the only truth that matters. The only truth that really matters in the end is that we are infinite beings, whole, divine, complete. We came from that. We will return to that. And in the meantime, in this life, it can become a beautiful, an acceptable, a joyful, a fascinating journey when we can find a center place, a home, where we know the mind has a survivalist mode, yet we also know that there's one truth that it can never change. In this place, in this space right here in the middle, calm, clarity, serenity, a type of acceptance for the good and bad, for the pain and the pleasure, for all of it can be reached. And if you are struggling right now in the darkness, in sadness, in whatever your situation might be, in this place in the middle that you too can create, you will understand how it can and will open up doors to blessings, to further deepen your connection to your soul. So today here, in addition to explaining spiritual advocacy, I am going to do a little bit of a reading, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of how this helps me in the living of the work today. I explain that here that we work to gain skills, and I share all the skills that I have learned to advocate for our spirits. One is self-compassion. When we are connected to the truth of what we are, we can choose love over fear and judgment. My therapist taught me every day we have that choice. That simple mantra and line is what I want to ask you to remember. Every day we have a choice between love and fear or judgment. When we are choosing love, we are choosing to sit back, recognize a fear that might come up. Whatever the thought might come up, what is the core fear that it might be based on that is disturbing you? You're not getting enough done. Somebody's thinking something or saying something about you. You feel that you have failed. Maybe you're stressed about something. Behind all of those thoughts, there's either a fear of lack of losing love, a fear of losing purpose, a core wound, something, fear of abandonment, fear of purpose, losing purpose, somewhere behind that. You don't need to get rid of it all right now, but in a space where we're choosing love, we're recognizing the fear and the judgment. And then from that, we can say, these thoughts are separating me from the only truth that matters. My true self is whole, divine, and complete, and none of these thoughts, none of all this stuff that's going on around me, nothing that I've done, if you've relapsed, nothing that you've said, maybe a conversation you regret, none of that changes that core truth. Spiritually advocate for yourself by having the self-compassion to choose love for those thoughts. Staying connected to your truth. Spiritual advocacy is also compassionate responses. Because the more that we build that choice of love and self-compassion in the beginning, the more protected we will become, the more of an arc field around us we will create. And in that space, we will have more compassionate responses to others, because when we are recognizing our own fears and judgment-based thoughts, we can see so easily, so vividly, when others are in them. When others project fears and they shame others, that is the worst. We can protect ourselves by being connected to our truth. And yes, even for people that are cruel and mean and that way, sit in a space in the second phase of spiritual advocacy and merely put them in the universe's hands. They are in their mind, in their ego, and only they can take their own journey for mindfulness. Ultimately, I do believe that if others more and more get to this space right here in the middle, a home within, that we can have third, more transformative, compassionate forms of justice and systems. Because in that space, we don't just look at people's behaviors and acts and condemn them and brand them. We look at the whole human body and spirit behind those words and acts. We consider the whole experience and compassionately say, what is this person possibly struggling with inside that is causing them to do this? Are they afraid of something? Has somebody hurt them? Or maybe it is something that is a brain psychological situation that is a chemical imbalance. But instead of branding and just condemning and shaming, we look holistically and say, how can this person be helped? How can the people around them get all the help that they need? This particularly applies for families that are struggling with mental health and addiction in the system. Often the first response is separation, which causes further generational trauma. After an immediate place of safety is reached, it is absolutely possible for families to go together to get the help that they need. So now I am going to read a part from the book. I'm really hoping that you'll add a question or something here. Hello. Apologize for this lighting, it's kind of funky. But here I'm gonna read. This is from a brand new blog post of mine on Medium that I encourage you to check out. I will post a link here in this live posting. I am a new blog contributor for Medium and I'm super, super happy about it. My first article is called Finding Freedom in Truth. And so I'm going to read, this is different excerpts from the book combined together, okay? Years of hard work brought prestigious titles, awards, and accolades. Then I ended up in the arms of the most powerful man in the state of California. But none of that erased the fact that I was struggling deep inside. I was so gravely ill-prepared for all that would happen in my life next. Tragedy after tragedy hit back to back and out of the blue. Death and trauma reared their ugly heads, and I never could seem to catch up. Perfect fodder for a sociopath and highly addictive drug. I fell into a swamp of terror and saw absolutely no way out. Worse, the press marred the truth and turned my agony into a scandal. The system denied justice, and the hell only continued. Shame consumed my entire being, and I nearly let it kill me too. All connection back to the truth within was stuffed down deep and forgotten. Once the up-and-comer, my life became treatment, jail, and hospitalizations. Bumps and falls, hopes and gains, the road to recovery was filled with challenges. Dear son, I could blame a few of my diseases on genes alone. I got 'em, and I got 'em bad. A line of depressed, self-medicating drinkers on both sides of the family surely sent a blueprint our way. Still, there is nothing to be afraid of. Knowing this is power. Mental health and substance abuse are complicated to understand and even harder to navigate. Worse, admitting them in a shame-filled and making world is more difficult. It is letting shame rule that you should fear, not the diseases, dear son. It is through sharing my personal process of recovery that you might receive a fair view into them, and more importantly, an ounce of hope and wisdom to help yourself or another human being should they ever occur. So herein, son, I share a lot, like a lot. It may be too much, it may not be enough. It may be embarrassing, disturbing, and cause moments when you feel distraught. Please breathe as you go and know my intentions were good. And most of all, promise me you'll read it to the very end. Love, Mom. Since the day of my release from Santa Ana jail, when the 7-year journey began, my head said, go alone and get it done quickly. Just get better, be okay, and fix it. But that's not how recovery from trauma, addiction, and chronic pain is possible. Self-sufficiency worked well during my pregnancy with the twins and their first year. My commitment to them and the pure joy of new life obliterated cravings, reduced flashbacks, and minimized body aches. All three were kept somewhat at bay for a period of time. Life on the outside evolved, but I was still the same Nadia, functioning in the same way, believing I was just a body and mind inside me. While fear, shame, and resentment were always lurking, what began happening was far beyond that. Psychological warfare and physical pain slowly returned to levels I could not handle. I began to feel off more and more frequently. I failed to reach out to anyone or ask for help when I was feeling this way. I hadn't yet built real, honest, and consistent relationships with my therapist, sponsor, and fellowship. This is dangerous territory for someone like me, who often didn't even recognize when I was off. I was flying on solo grit, straight into a full-blown crisis and crash landing in the embankment, just like the car accident years prior when I died. Dear son, I want to describe the next years in a clear, orderly way. I want it to flow with ease in a step-by-step play. But it's impossible to make sense of all the mistakes I made, and even harder to accept the wreckage and pain I caused you. All I can tell you is no amount of self-will worked. After every failure, shouts from the universe came. When the hell are you going to grab a helping hand? When will you finally surrender to a higher power within? After every trip and fall, a different block was lifted. I am so sorry it took so long for me to finally walk together. Love, Mommy. All along there you were, dear son, waiting for Mommy to get better. To say I am sorry will never be enough. All I can do is strive to give you a healthier parent and the things I have learned today. You'd think I'd get better once the system got involved. You'd think I'd dive deeper into the real issues inside. Tragically, the system's messages implore mothers and other. Tragically, let me repeat that. There was a pause there. The system's messages implore mothers to, quote, just be okay and act normal, dear, and don't cry or flinch, else you'll be deemed unstable, unhealthy, unfit, and unworthy. While every future relapse brought me closer to the underlying truth inside, every single one of them was a direct result of never being able to drop into the space of vulnerability in the middle. I had to go alone and quicker and be okay for the system in order to prevent further separation from my children. At least I thought. For those of you that are joining now, this is a variety of excerpts from the book I'm reading that hit and hone on the message of banning shame. The system punishes vulnerability. It rebukes diving deep into one's psyche for wisdom. It shuns brutal honesty and forces ignorance of the underlying truths. No judge or social worker wants to hear, I'm in a depth of emotional, mental, and physical pain and need a way out. Please help me stop my mind from convincing me a drink is the only relief out there. They'd simply say, lock her up and take her children away, adding to the factory line of generational trauma, addiction, and shame. If you really want an answer to the question, why does he or she do that? Then ask that person. Allow them to be vulnerable. Allow the truth to come out. But can we handle it? Probably not. Why? Because then you'd have to admit that those causing hurt to others need to be permitted the space, time, and place where they can be vulnerable and heal without fear of their children being taken away and the system's judgment and shaming. Don't tell me it isn't possible. It can be done. Then and only then can the cycle stop. I'm sick and tired of the system banishing vulnerability. When will they give a mother and her children the opportunity to get, stay, and remain somewhere safely together and supported for as long as needed? When will judges and social workers say, I see you, I hear you. We're sorry we keep banging your head against the wall. Here's the support and help you need to get out of hell. Go with your children and you won't go to jail. And by the way, the man that hurt you is being punished instead. Why not provide daily coaching, counseling, a mentor for both child and parent, daily workshops where sobriety is the requirement? I know it's insane to think that this will happen, but we can't sentence mental illness and think it will cure it. We can't sentence and separate and think it will cure mental health and addiction struggles. All it does is increase generational trauma. This sounds like pure blame. Well, I include myself in it. I am pissed off at myself for all the unhealthy choices. I am pissed off at myself that my children had to carry the toll. I am pissed off it took so long to find a place to heal, to get to where I have been at this home within, unified with my children. I am pissed it took so long. I failed the system time and time again. I admit it, but something about saying that doesn't feel right. Also, something about it ignores the underlying truth. Hey, okay, let's finish this. I believe I turned all of my calls off and the phone is on airplane mode, but I keep getting calls and texts. I apologize. I will figure it out, okay? Let me finish here. I failed the system time and time again. I admit it, but something about that doesn't quite feel right. Something about it ignores the underlying truth, the important space between stimuli and response. After reading some of Brené Brown's work, I learned this, and I'm thankful to her for embracing the study of vulnerability. So listen in. Whether it was the doctor's reckless actions ignored, a doctor who molested me as a child, whether it was carrying the pain of losing those I love alone, my father abruptly, a child, Arthur Carmona, the kid that I represented, my best friend, whether it was the shattering of my body by a big rig, 22 broken bones, not breathing when found, whether it was the bad guy never prosecuted, the man that exploited me and blackmailed the family as an adult later in life, whether it was the press's shaming, a Bay Area news reporter who posted a photo that he bought from that man. I think he bought, or you somehow got it, of me literally creating a mental health crisis into a drug and sex scandal. That nearly killed me. Again, whether it was the doctor's reckless actions ignored, carrying the pain of losing those I love alone, the shattering of my body by a big rig, the bad guy never prosecuted, the press's shaming, and more, I responded to each with unhealthy choices. I admit that. But what happened in the middle? What happened in my head, heart, and psyche? For you, for others, for many like me. It's called all-consuming feelings of shame, fear, and resentment. What can be done to give those less power? Being able to discover a home within us that keeps those mind-made emotions in check. But we can't get there unless we are allowed the journey. We can't force people to act okay, to be stamped okay, to be with loved ones right away. We have to allow the safe spaces to do the hard work, to be vulnerable. And for those of you that are out there that have the privilege of not being in jail or hospitalized, of not being in mandated treatment, embrace this time, embrace every moment to dive in, to see what core wounds there are, whether it's from childhood or early on, what are the core wounds? And for those of you that are in treatment, or perhaps maybe jail, home arrest, or hospitalized, what are the core wounds that your child, your inner child, still has right in there? Because it is those that get triggered. It is that our mind will focus on. And any fears and judgments that come up today come right back to that root. And our mind will continue to create thoughts that separate us from the only truth that matters. All those things will keep coming up and separate us from the only truth is that we are whole, divine, complete, from a core innocence, that nothing that you have done, that anyone has done to you, no word, no article, no sentence, nothing changes the fact of our true selves. In this space that I call a home in the middle, slowly mindfulness can be built. Shame will be recognized. And then on the other side, a beautiful relationship, a connectedness to something beyond this life can happen. A home within is a space in the middle of all the different learnings that are out there, whether it be 12-step recovery, trauma therapy, a Course in Miracles, or a yoga practice. For me, it's Kundalini Yoga. All of those learnings come together in one place, providing a roadmap in the book, Home is Within You. And I share the full story so that in there, someone will relate. There is something in this book, in a part, that I know everybody can relate to. And in sharing it all, it is taking a stand against all sources of shame and shaming, so that finally, hopefully, we will get to a space where our minds in this functioning will stop separating us from that only truth that matters. So I went on here, I explained spiritual advocacy, and I read from the book. If you are struggling, please let me know. I want to encourage all of those that have reached out to me and shared how the book is impacting you, and say thank you so much. Thank you. It is why I wrote the book, to help others and to provide a roadmap to my sons. And I am so blessed to be here today with the relationship that I have with them. You can email me. You can go to my website, www.nadia-davis.com, and there are links to everything there. Please sign up for the newsletter. It's kind of a monthly journaling. It's a monthly journal of different lessons and how to ban shame. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will get a ban shame tip sheet automatically, should you so choose it, that encapsulates all the different learnings that I share here and that are in the book. Again, thank you. Order Home is Within You if you haven't yet. Join me sometime next week for a live Instagram with Wes Gear, founder of Rock to Recovery, as well as my spiritual teacher, Priya Jain. An audiobook is in development and will hopefully be out in the next month, okay? Again, sending gratitude and hugs. Bye.